How's it going, folks? It's Rob here, and in today's clip we're going to be sussing out how the Kratky hydroponics and also the Autopot on the other side of me here is travelling. And I'll also run through how I prepared the seedlings to plant them out and give you a bit of a look at some updated buckets and trays. So before we look at the totes themselves, I'll just run through how these guys were started off. I didn't film these guys being sowed out, but I did film the lettuce going in. It's a very basic method of layering in some perlite in the base of one of these little trays, sprinkling in the seeds, and then covering it up with a little bit more perlite. And then all I did was pop probably around about 1/4 of an inch or about a centimetre's worth of water in the base. And since they've been in there, they've been topped up with water pretty much all daily. And whenever I fill up one of these other totes over here that get filled up repetitively, I've been adding in a little bit of nutrients. And as you can see, these lettuce have done really well. They have to go out soon, but I'll talk a bit about that in a tick. And these pak choi have done amazingly well. These guys here are what I selected these seedlings from. I just selected the plants I wanted from this tray here, grabbed them by the leaf, and then used my little poker just to separate the roots from the other roots in the plants in the tray, pop them in the little neck cups and fill them up with perlite from my little container. And from there it was just as easy as popping them into the trays themselves. And as you can see, they're doing okay. Still, some of these guys in here are doing a little bit better, I think, mainly because I was just, as you can see, working in one little area here. I'm actually looking at converting this tote here, removing some of the basil, or all the basil, sorry, and the thyme mint, and drilling in a couple of extra holes and planting out these guys here into that tote there. So that's something I'll do when Bianca and I get back from a few days away. These guys are going to be looked after by our house sitters, so hopefully Maya remembers to water them. These little lettuce here, these guys will be going into Mum's aquaponics. I'll probably take them around today and we'll pop a couple in, and I will be bringing the tray home because I would like to plan out a few here as well. But yeah, the trays, I did upgrade them a bit. I added in some extra holes here, as you can see, 2 in the middle. So now we've got 8 in each. And with this tray over here, it means we'll have 24 plants all up on the go. Just so we get a good rotation of the crops, I'm actually thinking of just feeding these guys water, or getting the girls to feed these water until we get back, just so it stunts them just a little bit. So hopefully these guys will be able to harvest these guys first before we hook into these guys once they're finished in the other tote. Just quickly, as you can see, had to do a little bit of a repair jobby on this one here. I was a little bit too heavy-handed with the drill and it cracked the top of the tote. So all I did, for you guys who may run into the same problem, is I used the holes that I drilled out from this tote over here and just drilled through the top of the lid and through the little discs themselves and pop riveted them on, and that's made the lid nice and sturdy. This little neck cup actually fits in very tightly. So yeah, did a great job of you know, not wasting something. I have seen people, once something like this cracks, they just throw it away, but I just figured, you know, this is going to be good enough. These plants aren't heavy, and I doubt any light is going to get through even the thinnest little crack there. So yeah, pretty happy with the way they've gone. I have had to pop up the little makeshift shade house again. The reason being is we've had some fairly hot weather, and while these guys here didn't wilt even when they were in the full sun the other day, these guys here were wilting a fair bit, mainly down to the transplant shock of being ripped from their tray and then popped into these little neck cups. So yeah, I've got no concern about them not bouncing back. They've been in for a couple of days, and today was the first day they didn't really wilt underneath this little veggie net shade cloth. So I'm pretty confident they'll take off fine from here. These lettuce, by the way, I haven't seen any wilt on these guys at all when they've been out in the sun. So yeah, I really do think these little seedling trays are the way to go to start off your crops. I'm actually going to be doing a revised version. I'll film a whole clip on that. Something very similar to what Rob from Bigelow Brook Farm has made and posted on his channel, so you can check out his little clip up there if you want a little bit of a spoiler as to what I'll be doing. This tray here, so I've just taken the shade cloth off to make it easier to show you the basil. The basil is going really well. We've done a number of harvests from this here. We did one earlier in the week, a nice big handful. I haven't used a great deal of this. We've only been clipping off little bits here and there and using it in stir fries and the like. I did post last clip that we were having a problem with thrips it ends up they were thrips on there, and I did catch a couple of hoverflies up here, still see them up here, laying their eggs in here, and their larvae will attack thrips and aphids and that sort of thing. But you can probably notice we're getting a bit of leaf curl. And if you look underneath the leaves, there you go, you might be able to make out a couple of little buggers in there. So that's what's causing the leaf curl. Someone suggested that it may be due to a nutrient overload in the system, but so far I don't think that's the case. I think it's just thrips getting in there. So these guys, as I said, will be coming out of here, the basil as well. So I'll just find somewhere else out in the patch for them, and I don't think I'll bother keeping them going here in the hydroponics at all, mainly because I want the quick turnover veg to come through, because I think that's where these guys really excel, like the cracky that is, just quick flowing veg that we can harvest continually. I have set up a little bucket here just for the sweet basil. I had a branch of sweet basil that was a trident. It had a stalk with 2 side stems, and it set roots right at that node juncture where the side branches came out. So I cut off 1, 2, 3 with a little bit of roots and just popped them down into the perlite on probably one of the windiest days we've had here. And I started off a little cutting just from the plant over the back there, and yeah, the cutting so far doesn't seem to be wilted at all, and neither do the other plants. Just try and stand these guys upright actually. I don't think that'll damage the roots too much. But yeah, the idea is to create a little bit of a green ball that we can just harvest just around the outside. And yeah, I didn't create a little bit of a watering hatch for it. But yeah, we should be able to just lift up the corner and top it up as we need to. And as is pretty obvious, I have painted the tops of these guys here. I painted down to just below this rim here, mainly because it was pretty hard to wrap this sarking insulation, silver foil insulation around the top, because all of these bumps and lumps. So I've just wrapped it around the base here. I've done it on these two here, as well as the one down here for the capsicum. It was a pretty easy job to do. To attach the sarking, all I did was put a bead of glue around the rim at the top, and yeah, just glued the top edge to the bucket itself, and then folded over the base after I trimmed it off a bit and glued it on the bottom, and that should stop a lot of the light getting through. The reason I've used this and not the other foil wrap that I had was on one of the buckets you could actually see where the painted logo on the outside, or the baby warning logo on the outside, wasn't allowing any of the algae to grow on the other side. So I figured that a little bit of light was still getting through that. Whereas this sarking, I've had experience with it. I used it as a wrap for the fish tank in the aquaculture system, just a straight fish farm, and I didn't have any problems with algae building up on the inside walls. So I think this is pretty much all the method I'm going to use for now. I will use a different paint though, because even though this paint says on the can and it was recommended will stick to plastic, it doesn't stick to plastic. So if I give it a bit of a light scrape, it will come off. So I'm going to have to rethink my paint choice next time round. So if anyone does have a brand here in Australia that does adhere to plastic, hit me up in the comments down below, leave a suggestion, I'd really appreciate it. In the next little tote we have rather stunted red Marconis. I didn't want to separate this little one out, so I figured I'll leave 2 in there and see how they go. They're not going to be competing for nutrients because it'll just be topped up whenever the nutrients are used up. They've only been in for 3 days, so hopefully they'll pick up, their leaves will darken up a little bit. The soil mix they were in was pretty bland, so yeah, I think they'll enjoy the nutrients in the hydro. Down here, the California Wonder capsicum. Yeah, I swapped the lid out, and as you can see we've got fruit falling off. When I pulled the cup out of the top of the old white top, I think I've damaged the root system rather drastically, and I noticed the very next day we were getting a lot of fruit drop. Just to give you a bit of a look from the top, the 4 existing fruit are still doing okay, but yeah, every other single flower or small fruit has dropped off. So I'm hoping it's just the stress from being transplanted, and yeah, she'll bounce back all right. Down here, the basil mint. It is growing phenomenally well in the auto pot. Can't fault the growth on it. We're not 100% sold on the flavour, and I don't think we're going to eat as much as this plant can grow. So this will be one that goes out to the soil patch, I think. There's a couple of runners coming off down the bottom, so I'll start them off in some soil, strike them in soil, and then I'll remove this plant from here because these bull's horns down here are taking off rather well. So I think I'd rather leave these 2 down here grow and move this out somewhere else. A couple of little mushrooms that Bianca bought for me, just to pretty up the pot there. But yeah, the auto pot, really sold on it. I think it's a great idea. Haven't had any issues with it other than a little bit of algae growing in my little adapter. I had a section of clear pipe that was an adapter from the larger barb down to this smaller flexi pipe, and that was getting a bit of algae in it, so I just wrapped some tape around there just to block the UV light out. But other than that, yeah, can't really fault the system whatsoever. Here's the sad little cucumber here. I saved it for you folks to have a bit of a gander at. It just didn't do well. It got smashed with powdery mildew, which was not good because it actually ended up transferring it down to my silver beet or rainbow chard in the veggie pod below there. So I had to trim that back as well. So it just didn't perform that well. We only got 2 fruit off it in the end. And one of the big reasons why, I think, is because the roots themselves are covered in algae, and I think that stunted its growth. And there's that algae that grew on the side wall, and again you can see down there where the child logo is on the outside, no algae grew behind that. So I just don't think that that silver underlay that I was using was any good. So yeah, a bit of a disappointment, but I do have a parthenocopic or parthenogenic self-fertile cucumber that we're going to have a crack at. So it's going, I don't know yet. I'm sort of running out of room here. I might try and sit it down on the ground here, and we'll try and get it to grow around the outside, just on the wires. Might be a bit hard to harvest, but yeah, have to crawl under the table to get to it, but such is. Just quickly, for you folks who are hanging out for a soil garden clip or an aquaponics clip on our system here, there will be some coming. It's just a matter of time and money at the moment, getting all our ducks in a row, so to speak. The landscaping, or a little bit of landscaping, is being done in a couple of weeks. And when I get back from our short little trip away, Bianca and I will be starting to pull down the aquaponics system and rebuilding it. And I'll be bringing you along and showing you different aspects of the build, as well as I might do a demolition clip as well for you. And yeah, we do have a couple of soil beds planned for the little landscaped area as well. So we'll bring you along and share that with you folks as well. Before I go, I really do need to thank those awesome folks who are supporting us on different platforms around the place, the Farm Your Own Yard page, and also the YouTube membership platform. Thank you very much for your support, folks. If you are interested in going a bit above and beyond and helping us out and getting some free content while you're at it, there will be a link at the clip, at the end of the clip, that you can click on and have a bit of a gander at what the Farm Your Own Yard group is all about. Also too, don't forget to check out the super supporters. There's links to their websites and Facebook pages down in the description below. It'd be fantastic if you could hop on over and check them out. And if you haven't switched off, because I'm spooking myself again, yeah, stay tuned for a little bit of a look at a snack that Lizzie had the other day. So there you go. I do hope you're all well and happy and your own gardens are booming, and I'll catch you later. Cheers folks, have a top one. You're a silly dog. Hello. Cucumber tastes nice? Or do you just like the crunch?